When is the right time to tear things down? I think there's going to be maybe a half dozen, could be up to a dozen instances in your life where you have to make a call, and you have to make, when you come to a crossroads and you're faced with completely letting go of what you currently have, whether that be in a romantic relationship, whether that be a job that you hold, whether that may be perhaps a friendship, or perhaps a location where you live. You're going to have these choices presented to you, and it's going to be a very, very difficult one. And for the first time in my life, I think I've come across a analogy that makes me really understand the pros and cons of making that type of decision. I love basketball. I love watching sports. Particularly, I have a strong interest in the assembly of a team, the transactions, the strategy in building a team. And in the NBA, over the past 10 years or so, past 15 years, since LeBron James joined the Miami Heat, there's been this infatuation of building super teams. And I think over the past 15 years, everyone in the league, all the GMs, the fans, the media, they've been kind of pushing this narrative and I guess this excitement for building a big three on their team. 3 all-stars, 3 superstars on their team. Meanwhile, there have been just a couple of instances where the GMs of a smaller market team, or perhaps a more forward-thinking GM, had decided they want to use an opposite tactic. Namely, Sam Hinkie of the Philadelphia 76ers, where he purposely made the team really bad and tanked the team for a couple of years in order to acquire a really high draft pick. He used cap space to acquire bad contracts, and in return, he received more draft capital. And I think Sam Presti looked at what he was doing in Philadelphia and took it to a whole nother level. Acquiring draft capital, taking on players who were in down years. Chris Paul, for example, he was considered a player who was washed up and old. So the Oklahoma City Thunder received draft capital for Chris Paul. But then after Chris Paul had a great year in OKC, he was then traded to the Phoenix Suns for additional draft capital. So he was bought low and sold high. And during these years, the team, when they rebuilt, it was a painful process. When they traded away Paul George, it was a painful process where they had to struggle for a couple of years. And I think that's what we have to do as startup founders or as people working in the professional space. Let's talk about the professional element first, which is you're working at a comfortable job. You're making an above average salary for your age group. You get to enjoy certain things in your life, but you also know that your heart is not really into that particular industry or that job. And you have such a strong desire to innovate, to build something, to perhaps do something that is meaningful for society. And you're almost in a position the same way that one of these GMs would be, in the sense that you're a middle of the tier team. You make the playoffs every year, but you get bounced in the first or second round. Um, and you don't really see a future with this team. You don't really see yourself getting better with this team. Now you have to make that call. Now you have to rebuild. You have to trade away your good players. You have to start from scratch. And this is the tough, really tough call that you have to make, which and I guess the reality that you have to face, which is when you do go through with dispersing this team that you have, this situation that you have, those first few years is going to be very painful. You're going to make less, right? The same way a team wins fewer games when they do a rebuild. You're going to make less money. People are going to question you. People will absolutely question you. Wow, you gave up this corporate job to work on a startup or to start a small business. And sometimes that small business might be something that they feel is not lucrative. You might be starting a bakery. You might be starting a construction company. But that might truly be where your heart is, what you have a desire, what you feel like you have an expertise on. And I'm not going to say it's the right move for everybody. Rebuilding is not the right move for everybody. If you have a family, if you have kids, you may not have that luxury to take that risk and rebuild your professional life and restart a career. You may need the stability. But if you're single, or if your partner has supports you and maybe has the financial means to hold you down in this instance, just know that a lot of the teams who go through the rebuild, they take a few steps back before they take a step forward. So whether this applies to your professional life, whether that applies to a romantic relationship where you feel like the romantic relationship is not going anywhere, or applies to maybe thinking about moving to a new country, moving to a new city, where that move is going to give you opportunities but set you back momentarily, or perhaps it has to do with letting go of someone passing away. It could be a family member, it could be your mother, your father, could be somebody near and dear to you that you relied on every single day, and being able to let that person go. I think we can take a page out of sports teams and how some of the more successful and more unorthodox GMs have navigated their field and find inspiration from it. Find inspiration from Billy Beane and the Oakland Athletics, who was able to build a team using a fraction, right? He had a small market. There was no free agents that wanted to go there. Even if there was a free agent who wanted to go there, he didn't have the money to pay them. So he had to find an alternative in building his teams. I think Billy Beane led the original Moneyball. I think Sam Hinkie of the Sixers, he started the movement in NBA, but he was, I think him and the owner had a dispute. They parted ways before he could complete his vision. But Sam Presti, they're 2 wins away from NBA championship, and they have the best team in the league, players who are just hitting their primes or not even in their primes, and they also have the best draft capital moving forward. I think this is a lesson that you can take a rebuilding route and still be successful. So if anybody's on the verge of thinking about how to enter the full-time startup, start their business on the full-time, at a full-time scale, Once again, I'm not going to say it's for everybody. You really, truly have to analyze all your options, the pros and cons. But we can also take some solace in knowing that in order for you to take a step forward, most of the times you have to take a few steps back.